We are here on B2.3 Cell Specialization for the HL students. Here are the two guiding questions. What are the roles of stem cells in multicellular organism, and how are differentiated cells adapted to their specialized functions? So what is this video going to be focused on? We're going to focus on adaptations of type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes in the alveoli of the lungs. We're going to understand a little bit about their structures and how their structure behaves in a certain function. We're going to talk about the adaptations of the cardiac muscle cells, as well as the striated muscle fibers and their structures and how that relates to their function. We're also going to talk about the adaptations of the sperms and the eggs and how that is based also on their own functions. So, by the end of this video, you should be able to identify and describe cell types that increases the surface area to volume ratios and describe specific adaptations that cells in the following areas have undergone to perform their functions. We're going to talk about the lungs, the hearts, the muscles, and the gonads, which are the sexual reproduction section. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the cell adaptation when it comes to surface to area volume ratio, right? We know that the cells need to have a certain structure to be able to function, to be able to get things into the cell or get things out of the cell as quickly as possible, to do communication fast, to transmit or excrete things or diffuse things very fast. So also that happens in the lungs. The lung system, for example, you want to get the oxygen as fast as possible throughout the body, and you want to get the CO2 out of the body as soon as possible. The same thing with the digestive system. When it comes to the blood, you want to get the nutrients quickly to somewhere they want, and some things you want to get them out of the body completely through your kidneys or basically through your feces. So in all processes, we have to have that cell in the right structure in order to do the right function. For example, when it comes to prokaryotes, which are just one cell, right? They are very tiny. As you know, bacteria are very tiny. They usually have no issues with the surface to area volume ratio. They're just tiny. Because of them being so tiny and they don't grow much, they can maintain their surface to area volume. But when it comes to eukaryotics, are not tiny little things that we don't even see them except through microscope. We are big, right? As you can see, we're humans, we're big. We have giraffes and elephants. Their cells cannot just be this one huge cell. They're going to divide into many cells in order to keep that surface to area volume ratio going. But sometimes even that is not enough. They have to change their way of structure, how they look like, to make their function even more efficient out there, just to make sure that that surface to area volume ratio, it is maintained in a healthy way to keep everything going forward. So one of the ways in which they can manipulate the surface area volume, we're going to learn this, is through flattening the cell. Because a cell that is very thick compared to a cell that is very thin, which one is going to be able to diffuse faster? Obviously through the thin layer, right? For you to concept here, let me just do a quick little drawing for you to understand. Imagine you have something here that is very thick. This is a very thick wall. And then you have a very thin wall. And you have this one little piece here. Obviously, the piece is going to take a longer time to pass through this wall. And this one is going to go very quickly. So that's why by flattening the cells, things can go faster. And that usually can happen in many places, such as in your lungs, such as even on your kidneys. These are even your capillaries. These are very thin cells, or should I say thin walls, because it allows things to go faster, to exchange to actually happen faster. So that's the first type of structure that they manipulate in order to make the surface area volume stay amazing. So it's flattening the cells. The second one in this process will be actually invaginations. When I say the word invagination, it means the folding of the membranes. Now, there's two locations that shows a lot of that foldings. One of them is the mitochondria. In the mitochondria, if you see this in the picture, you see a lot of the foldings that are happening here. Let me show you here. You see these little foldings? These actually comes from the inner membrane, which is folding inside. And all of these foldings, what it's doing is increasing the surface area to volume ratio. So there is more contact with what? With the space inside. Imagine you have that compared to something that is just like this. You're not going to have a contact the molecule that is here from reaching here, right? Because they have to be contact with the wall. But if you have something folded like this, look, now the molecule is closer to the wall. So that means there is more contact. So folding is another method of making the surface area to volume ratio much better. That means more exchange and faster. So the mitochondria inside of it, it has a lot of that folding. That folding is known as a Cristae, and which increases the metabolic reactions. That means the Krebs cycle will be quickly working with the ETC because of these foldings that are happening inside of the mitochondria. The same thing happens with the chloroplast. See, the chloroplast has these foldings. In this case, it looks like these, which are the thylakoids. So the more thylakoids they have, the more it is contact with the sunlight, and there's more absorption of the sunlight towards the pigments. So that means there's more pigments absorbing whatever necessary sunlight in order to make all the photosynthesis process. So the stacks of thylakoids, this is another way of increasing the surface area ratio in order to make the function of photosynthesis even better, because it's just absorbing all of it. So as we saw, two ways in order to increase that surface area volume, right? One was flattening the cell, another one was invaginating, folding the cell. These are two ways. So another one that we have here is the small intestine. It's another one that is invaginating. If you actually look in the inside of a tube of a small intestine, you'll see that it also has these foldings, and these foldings are known as villi. And even the villi has extra foldings, which are the microvilli. All of these foldings are there to make more contact. So by them having these more contact, surface area ratio with volume, the more exchange and the more absorption of molecules will pass through the small intestine to the bloodstream. So, as I was saying, here for a little picture, imagine this is a tube like this. This tube has this huge hole inside. If the molecule is here, not much going to touch. But if you have a tube that has a folding like this, what's going to happen? If the molecule is right here, obviously, if this molecule is right here, it's already touching that wall. So the foldings that are happening inside the small intestine also helps it touch the particle. So this little folding that I just did here, that's literally this villi right here. And imagine, inside of one of the villi, every single one of these little squares are these guys. And look, they have even more folding through the microvilli. So that's a lot of increase in surface area, a lot of contact with the lumen or the core of the small intestine. And then we have it even in the kidney. The kidney has basically the proximal convoluted tube, which you're going to learn this in the kidney section, which they also are doing a lot of folding. And through that folding, as you can see here, these foldings that are happening here is also increasing the surface area to volume ratio. Now, so we have microvilli found where inside these tubules. So inside, their microvilli are the same ones as the small intestine. They have these little Invagination foldings going on to increase the connection with the inside of the kidney cell in order to absorb the nutrients they want back to the blood, or they want to release whatever's in the blood back to the kidney so the kidney can put it out through your urine. So yes, you even have these microvilli in the cells, or should I say in the tubes of the kidney cells. So when it comes to the type 1 pneumocytes and type 2, these guys they have a different type of structure folding, or should I say they have a different type of position themselves in the alveoli, better yet in the lungs, in order to keep the function going. So when it comes to type 1 pneumocytes, as you hear, they are actually 95% of the alveoli, the surface. Now, they're very thin. Why they're thin? Because you want to exchange. They want to exchange whatever it is inside of the alveoli with the blood vessels. So imagine, alveoli is here, blood vessels here. The wall between them has to be thin. Who's that wall? Is it type 1? If the type 1 has a very thin wall, then exchange between oxygen and CO2 is very quickly between the two sides. If that wall was very thick, then there would be an issue. That's why type 1 cells that are found here between the alveoli and the blood vessels are very thin in order to allow the exchange. So they are basically surrounded by these capillaries, and they're very thin. And this way, voila, you have all the exchange of oxygen going in. They also have very few organelles inside the type 1. Why is that? Because you want to give that freedom of space to make the oxygen and CO2 move fast. And that way, they also have a diameter of 50 micro, and this keeps every single one of their cells tied to each other. And that gives a lot of space in order to make all these gas exchange happening. Type 2, on this case, this cell is only made about 5%, and they have a cuboidal shape, which is a little bit like this, and they usually are more sporadic in the alveolar. These guys, they have secretory vesicle. What do we have as a structure? These secretory vesicles produces a type of liquid known as surfactant, which basically makes the alveoli be able to close and open like this, elastic. That way you can breathe in, breathe out much easier. So this surfactant is made of phospholipids and proteins, and it prevents the alveoli from collapsing. So you notice type 1, it has a thin wall and it's job is what? To do the gas exchange between the alveoli and the capillaries. Type 2, it's cuboidal. It's all about having these secretory vesicles in which they produce the surfactant to make sure that the alveoli doesn't collapse and it keeps opening and closing. So here's a picture to show you the difference between type 1 and type 2. Remember, those two together makes the alveoli, okay? But type 1 has more of it than type 2. So here, I'm going to show you the drawing here just to show you that this is exactly of a type 2 right here, and this is a type 1. And you can see that these right here is the capillaries that we have with the red blood cells inside of them. So you can see that the capillaries are surrounding one of the alveoli. Remember, alveoli is made of those two types of cells. So look at the type 1. As you can see, it's very thin, right? And this allows a lot of gas exchange. And then type 2, you can see it's cuboidal, which actually has the secretory vesicles to produce what we call a surfactant. Just to be clear, this is what one alveoli will look like. And of course, the alveoli will be made of these tiny little cells like this, which these are the type 1. And then they will have sporadically these cuboidal cells, which are the type 2. Remember, all of that wall of the alveoli is made of type 1, with the exception of some of them are type 2. And exactly these type 1s are connecting with who? With the blood vessels that is right next to it. So there's an exchange going on between the two sides here, between the alveoli and the capillaries, simply because type 1 is very thin and allowing that. Now let's talk about muscles. There is 3 types of muscles. We have the cardiac muscles, which are found in the heart. They are involuntary. Myogenic, what does that mean? That means the heart beats on its own, this muscle contracts on its own. Then you have the skeletal muscle, which these are voluntary, and these ones are basically attached to skeletons, and you can see the bones. And then we have the smooth muscles, which are found in all the other organs, and they're basically working and pushing foods. Like, for example, the smooth muscles that are happening in the small intestine are pushing the food through peristalsis and pushing through circular and longitudinal muscles, pushing that food out until it gets out of view. So these type 3 muscles. Now, when it comes to the adult cardiomyocytes, when I say cardio, we mean heart. Myocytes, of course, cells. They are large. They are 150 micrometers, based according to other cells, right? They only have a single nucleus, and they have a lot of mitochondria. Why would you think that they have a lot of mitochondria? Because you need energy to keep the heart pumping. They also have branch fibers. Now, between these branches, there's gap junctions. What are gap junctions? These are things that holds one cardiac cycle cell to another one. They keep them holding together, and they have intercalated discs, which are holding all these muscles, these cardiac muscles together. So they contract together, they relax together, they contract together, they relax together. So if electricity passes through them, as you can see here, it makes efficient that all receive at the same time, so they contract and they all relax at the same time. All because they have the gap junction holding them in the intercalated disc. And again, these fibers are so connected, and they are pushing each other together through electricity with the ATP and mitochondria to pump. When it comes to skeletal muscle, they are basically arranged in bundles, right? We have bioconnective tissue. Now, they are about 12 centimeters, okay, and they are unbranched. Now, if you look at these fibers here, the skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles, you can see that they're a little bit different. You can see that the cardiac muscles, they're a little bit more branched, and these guys they're not branched as well as these not branched. Now, here's an interesting thing about the skeletal muscle fibers. They have many nuclei within the cytoplasm. So they are known as multinucleated, which that means many nucleus in one cell. However, you don't see that in the cardiac muscles. Now, what makes the multinucleated so important? It makes it easy for them to do all types of protein synthesis and repairing. So by having a bunch of nucleus, you can do the DNA replication, and then eventually you can do the transcription translation much, much faster. So that's the difference between the striated muscles as well as the cardiac muscles. And then we talk about the sperms and the eggs. The sperms, they don't have much cytoplasm. They only have a mitochondria. Why would they have a mitochondria? Because they need the ATP to make the flagella move. So if you look at the sperm usually, you have a drawing of the sperm like this. This is a tail, and then it has the mid-piece, and then it has the head with its acrosome here. Now, you see this piece right here in the middle? This has a lot of mitochondria. Why? Because mitochondria is going to produce a lot of ATP. So this part right here, which is the flagella, It can actually move. This guy right here, this area right here, it is the flagella that is doing this. It's the motion that is pushing the sperm to move in direction towards the egg. So it definitely needs the mitochondria to be here in order to produce a lot of ATP for that. So again, its structure, it helps with its function, which is the movement. Now, when it comes to the egg, as you can see, it has many layers to allow just one sperm. If there was no layers, that means what I mean by layers is like, think of this. This is the egg, and then it has a layer, and then it has another layer, and it has another layer. These layers, it is to block many sperms because it just wants one sperm to go in. So basically, these sperms are competing to find that final layer. And of course, because there's not enough cytoplasm, as you see in the drawing here of the sperm, there's not much cytoplasm, which that means there's not much any organelles coming from the sperm. So that means the egg must have most of the cytoplasm and carry most of the organelles, such as the Golgis, the ERs, the mitochondria, to bring it to the baby, because the sperm is only bringing the genetic material DNA, which you can see and find it here. So not much space for cytoplasm. So obviously that is the largest human cell, the eggs, because it has the biggest part of the cytoplasm with the organelles to take it for the baby. So this is it for the video showing different cells with different structures and how it adapts to their functions. We have described them based also on the surface area volume, what kind of structures you want for them. And again, we show you different types of structures and functions for the lungs, the hearts, the muscles, and the gonad. So that was B2.3 on cell specialization for HL. The next section, it will be about gas exchange for both SL and HL students. So for now, remember, with NAIRB, you can get the 7. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.